My brother stopped speaking to me 3 years ago the way you close a tab you're done with. No argument, no goodbye. Just gone. Because I told him no. He had asked me to co-sign a loan for a rental property he wanted to flip. The numbers didn't work. I told him that. I showed him that. He called me selfish, said I never supported family, and hung up. His wife sent one text after, "Don't bother reaching out. We're done with you." I saved it. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me already knew I'd need paper eventually. In those 3 years, I built something. Not out of spite, not to prove anything, just because I needed something that was fully mine. I found a narrow storefront on Clemson Street, the kind of place with good bones and terrible lighting, and I turned it into a floral design studio. Not a flower shop, a studio. Custom arrangements for weddings, corporate events, photo shoots, private clients who wanted something that didn't look like a grocery store bouquet. I named it Wren and Stem. I painted the door sage green. I hired 2 part-time designers and a delivery driver. I built a client list that took 3 years of early mornings and late nights and flowers I took home because they didn't sell before they wilted. People actually came back. That's the part nobody tells you about building something from scratch. The first time a client books you twice, it feels like proof. It was a Thursday morning, the kind that starts with too many orders and not enough hours, when the front door opened and I heard my sister-in-law's laugh before I saw her face. I was in the back cooler pulling stems for a rehearsal dinner order when my assistant, Priya, appeared in the doorway with an expression I had never seen on her before. Not scared. Not confused. Carefully neutral, the way people look when they're trying not to show you something before they have to. "There are people here," she said. "They say they know you." I set the eucalyptus down and walked out. My brother was standing at my front counter with the ease of someone who had been there 100 times and planned to be there 100 more. He had the same wide shoulders I remembered, the same way of positioning himself slightly ahead of whoever he was with, like he was always entering a room before he'd finished deciding if he wanted to be in it. His wife stood beside him in a linen blazer I recognized as new, her phone raised at chest level, angled at me like a weapon she hadn't decided to fire yet. She ran a lifestyle blog, curated mornings, family aesthetics, sponsored activewear. I was apparently going to be content. Behind them, their teenage son leaned against the wall near the door, earbuds in, unaware or indifferent. My brother looked around the studio slowly, taking inventory the way a landlord does when he's deciding what to charge. His eyes moved across the cooler cases, the display shelves, the hanging installations I'd built from dried pampas and preserved magnolia. He nodded once like he was approving something he'd already decided he liked. "Nice," he said. "You did well for yourself." I didn't say thank you. I walked to the counter and stood behind it. Not for the barrier, for the position. "Can I help you?" I said. His smile thinned slightly at the edges. He reached into the leather satchel he was carrying and pulled out a document. Not a thin one. A packet, stapled, formal, printed on paper that looked like it had been prepared by someone who wanted it to look official without actually involving an attorney. He placed it on my counter and slid it forward. I didn't touch it. I read it from where I stood. At the top, in clean bold type, promissory note repayment demand. Principal amount, $40,000. My name was on it as the borrower. His name was on it as the lender. The date at the top was 3.5 years ago, 2 months before I signed my lease on Clemson Street. I raised my eyes to his face. "What is this?" "You know what it is?" he said. "I lent you $40,000 to start this place. I need it back." My sister-in-law's phone shifted slightly, catching my expression. "You never lent me anything," I said. My voice came out flat, not angry, flat, because I was doing math very quickly and the most important calculation was how much of this conversation was going to matter later. He leaned on the counter. "You're going to stand there and say that to my face?" "I'm going to stand here and say it on camera," I said, glancing briefly at his wife's phone. "Since we're being recorded." His wife lowered the phone half an inch. "Just half." "Mira," my brother said, his voice dropping into something slower, more deliberate. "I helped you when nobody else would. You had nothing. No credit history worth a damn, no savings, no plan. I put $40,000 into this. I did it quietly, because that's what family does. And now you have a business, and I have nothing in writing except this note, which I've been patient about for 3 years." He said the word family the way people use it when they mean obligation. "Where did this money come from?" I asked. "Walk me through it." "Wire transfer? Check? Cash?" He smiled without warmth. "I'm not your accountant." "No," I said, "but my accountant is." And she has every transaction from the 6 months before I opened this studio and the 6 months after, because that's what you do when you're running a legitimate business. You document everything. I paused. There's no $40,000 from you. There's no $10,000 from you. There's nothing from you. My brother's jaw flexed. His wife's phone rose back to chest height. Then I'll let the courts sort it out, he said pleasantly, like this was an outcome he had planned for. A promissory note is a promissory note. You dispute it, we go to discovery. Your books get opened. Your business gets disrupted. Or, he tapped the document, you sign the acknowledgement on page 3. We set up a payment plan, and this stays between us. I looked at page 3. It was an acknowledgement of debt with a repayment schedule. My signature line was at the bottom in a box labeled, Borrower confirms receipt of funds. I slid the packet back toward him using the edge of my clipboard. I didn't touch his paper. No, I said. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he reached back into his satchel and pulled out his phone. Okay, he said. Then I make a call. To who? I asked. Your SBA lender, he said. I know you have a small business loan. I know the terms. A disputed debt claim against the business owner creates complications. Your loan officer gets nervous. Nervous loan officers ask questions. Questions take time. Time costs you clients. He tilted his head. You think your wedding clients stay booked when there's a lien question on the business? My chest tightened. I knew enough about small business financing to know he wasn't entirely wrong about the disruption. A fraudulent debt claim didn't have to win to cause damage. It just had to exist long enough. But I also knew something he didn't. Go ahead, I said quietly. Call. He blinked. His wife's hand steadied on the phone. I'm serious, I said. Call your loan officer right now. Put it on speaker. Let's have that conversation in front of witnesses. My brother's eyes narrowed. He hadn't expected that. People who make threats rarely expect you to invite them to follow through. He looked at me for 3 full seconds. Then he unlocked his phone and found a contact. He held it up so I could see the name. Not my lender. A different name. Someone in county records. Maybe. Someone he thought he could use. He dialed. It rang. No answer. He tried again. Voicemail. His wife shifted her weight. I turned slightly and called toward the back. Priya, can you ask Mrs. Calloway to come up front for a second? Priya appeared in the doorway looking unsure, then nodded and disappeared again. My brother's eyes followed the motion, trying to figure out what I was doing. A moment later, a woman in her early 50s came through from the back room, still holding the mug of tea Priya had offered her when she arrived for our consult 20 minutes earlier. She was dressed in a blazer and reading glasses pushed up on her forehead, and she had the relaxed, unhurried manner of someone who spent most of her professional life not being surprised by anything. Her name was Donna Calloway. She was a contracts and small business attorney. She was also a regular client who came in monthly for arrangements for her office reception desk, and she had been sitting in my back room reviewing color samples for a spring event when my brother walked in. I hadn't planned this, but I also hadn't panicked. Donna, I said, I'm sorry to interrupt your consult. This is my brother. He's presented me with a promissory note claiming I owe him $40,000 and has suggested he plans to file a debt claim against the business. Donna looked at my brother over the rim of her glasses. Then she looked at the document on the counter. May I? She asked me. Not him. Please, I said. She picked it up and read it in silence for about 45 seconds. My brother watched her with an expression that was trying to stay confident and not quite making it. Who prepared this? She asked, still reading. My brother straightened. I did. She looked up. You drafted it yourself? I'm not required to use an attorney for a personal loan document, he said. No, you're not, she agreed. You are required to have a valid underlying transaction, however. She set the document down and looked at him directly. This note references a disbursement date. Do you have a record of the transfer? Bank statement showing the outgoing funds? A wire confirmation? Cash withdrawal documentation? My brother's posture shifted slightly. That's between me and my sister. It was, Donna said pleasantly. Now it's potentially between you and a civil court, which means it's also between you and whatever documentation you have, and you and whatever documentation she has. In my experience, when one party maintains complete financial records and the other party produces a self-drafted promissory note with no supporting transaction history, that tends to go a predictable direction. She paused. If you file a lien or debt claim on this business based on this document, she'll be within her rights to countersue for fraudulent filing and abuse of process. Depending on the jurisdiction and the specifics, that could include attorney's fees and damages. His wife's phone had not lowered, but her expression had. My brother turned back to me. He switched tactics the way water finds a new path when one is blocked. His voice went soft. Reasonable. Familiar in the worst way. Mira, he said. We're family. I'm not trying to take anything from you. I'm asking you to remember where you came from. You didn't build this alone. Nobody builds anything alone. I built this alone, I said. I was there, he said. I supported you. Maybe it wasn't cash. Maybe it was other things. Time, connections, advice. You didn't speak to me for 3 years, I said. Because you hurt me, he said. And for a moment his voice actually cracked, just slightly. And I recognized it because I had seen it my entire childhood. The pivot to wounded. The moment the aggression doesn't land and suddenly he becomes the one who has been wronged. You refused to help me when I needed you. You chose money over your own brother. And I forgave that. I forgave it, and I came here because I thought we could. You came here with a fabricated debt document, I said. Don't rewrite it while your wife is filming. His wife finally lowered the phone. My brother's face went flat. The wounded expression dissolved back into something harder. He reached into the satchel one more time and pulled out a thin envelope, the kind that holds a single folded page. He set it on the counter without sliding it toward me. I filed this morning, he said, before I came here. A notice of disputed ownership interest, with the county clerk, claiming partial beneficial interest in this business based on the loan. He met my eyes. It takes 3 to 5 business days to process. In the meantime, it shows up as a cloud on your business title. Anyone doing due diligence on Ren and STEM for a contract, a loan, an event partnership, anything will see it. My stomach went cold, but my face didn't change. Donna looked at the envelope, then at me. Do you want me to stay? She asked quietly. Yes, I said. She pulled out her own phone and began typing something without explaining what. I looked at my brother. What county office? I asked. He named it. County Clerk, Business Records Division. I opened my business management app on the tablet mounted beside the register. I had set up filing alerts 18 months ago after a vendor dispute that taught me how fast paperwork could move when someone wanted it to. I navigated to entity monitoring. No new alerts. I looked up. What time did you file? 8:45, he said. It was 10:12 now. I refreshed the alert screen. Nothing. Then Donna spoke from her corner of the counter without looking up from her phone. Mira, what's the name of your registered agent? I told her. She nodded slowly. The county clerk's office has a 1 to 2 business day processing delay on this type of filing. But your registered agent would have received a preliminary notification this morning if anything was submitted under your business name. Can you check their portal? I opened it. I used my registered agent's app, the one I check the way other people check email, carefully and often. 1 pending notification. Flagged this morning at 9:03. Preliminary dispute filing received. Disputed interest claim. Submitted party. External. Status. Under review. No changes to entity record at this time. I turned the tablet so my brother could see the screen. It's pending, I said. Not processed, not accepted, and now it's documented that you filed it. His wife took one quiet step backward. My brother stared at the screen, then at me. That doesn't change anything. It documents everything, I said. I looked at Donna. What do I do? She didn't look up from her phone. I'm drafting a response notice to the county clerk right now. We'll file an objection with your supporting financial records by end of business today, which creates a parallel record showing the claim is disputed and the underlying transaction doesn't exist. She paused. I'm also sending a cease and desist to whatever address he filed from, putting him on notice that any further filing attempts will be treated as civil harassment and tortious interference with business operations. My brother's voice tightened. You can't. She can, Donna said evenly, still typing. And I'd encourage you to think carefully about what you do next, because right now you have a self-drafted promissory note with no transaction history, a disputed filing with no supporting documentation, and a conversation that has been happening in front of a witness who happens to be a licensed attorney. She looked up at him for the first time since she started typing. I've seen this exact structure before. It doesn't end well for the person who initiates it. My brother looked at his wife. She said nothing. He turned back to me, and his voice dropped to something that wasn't quite a whisper but was meant for only me. You think you're protected because you have a lawyer friend. You're not. I know things about this business. I know you had a vendor dispute last year. I know you lost a major client in the fall. I've been watching. I know where the cracks are, and I know how to widen them. I held his gaze. Then, I said calmly, that I survived both of those things. Because I document everything and I don't panic when people try to pressure me. I reached under the counter and pulled out my own folder. The thin one I kept in the lockbox drawer for situations I hoped would never happen. This is my original lease, my SBA loan paperwork, my LLC formation documents, and my full financial summary from the 18 months before and after opening. I set it on the counter without opening it. There is no $40,000 transfer from you. There's no $5,000 transfer from you. There is nothing from you except 3 years of silence. His wife finally spoke, voice careful and measured. We're not trying to fight. We just thought, as family. You walked in here with a fabricated debt document, I said, and filmed it. I looked at her directly. When you post that video, you're going to want to think about what it shows. Because what it shows is your husband presenting fraudulent paperwork to a business owner while an attorney watched. She looked at her phone like she was recalculating something. Priya appeared at the back doorway again, and this time she wasn't alone. The 2 uniformed officers behind her had the quiet, purposeful movement of people who knew exactly what they were walking into. One of them was young, early 30s, with a notepad already in hand. The other was a woman in her 40s whose expression suggested she had been to this kind of scene before and had no patience for the scenic route. Priya looked at me with an expression that said, I called. I hope that was right. I gave her the smallest nod. The female officer looked at me first. Ma'am, we got a call from a neighboring business about a disturbance. Are you the owner? I am, I said. These are my family members. My brother arrived with what appears to be a fabricated debt claim and has indicated he filed a disputed ownership notice with the county clerk this morning without any legal basis. He also made statements suggesting he would contact my lender and interfere with my business relationships unless I signed an acknowledgement of a debt that doesn't exist. The officer looked at my brother. Sir, is that accurate? My brother's posture inflated. This is a private family matter. It became a business matter when you filed a document with the county, Donna said from her end of the counter, not looking up. The female officer glanced at Donna. And you are? Attorney. Here on a separate client matter, Donna said. I've been present for the last 15 minutes of this conversation. The younger officer had his notepad open. Sir, he said to my brother, can I get your name? My brother gave it. His voice had gone careful now. Contained. Can you describe the nature of the filing you made this morning? The officer asked. My brother paused. It was a notice of disputed interest. Legal. Completely legal. Is the underlying claim documented? The officer asked. Do you have records of the transaction you're claiming as the basis? Silence for 2 seconds. His wife answered for him, quietly. We're working on pulling those together. The younger officer wrote something. The female officer looked at me. Do you want to file a report? I had thought about this moment, not this specific scene, but this kind of moment, for a long time. The moment where you have to decide whether to make it official. And I had already decided, years ago, when I saved that text from my sister-in-law. Don't bother reaching out. We're done with you. Yes, I said. I want to report the attempted coercion and the fraudulent filing, and I want the responding attorney's statements included in the record. I looked at Donna. She nodded once. Happy to provide a formal written statement today. My brother's voice went raw. You're actually doing this. You filed paperwork, I said. That's doing this. I'm just responding. His wife touched his arm. He pulled it away. The female officer addressed him directly now, her voice measured but without softness. Sir, filing a fraudulent or unsupported lien or ownership dispute against a business can constitute civil fraud and, depending on intent, may rise to criminal filing interference. I'd strongly recommend you speak to an attorney before taking any further steps related to this business. My brother stared at her like he was waiting for her to wink, to reveal that this was performative, that the uniform didn't really mean what it had always meant in rooms where he controlled the situation. It didn't wink. His wife leaned in close to him and said something I couldn't hear. Whatever it was, it changed the set of his shoulders. Not defeat. Recalibration. He looked at me one final time. You'll regret this, he said. You don't burn family and walk away clean. I didn't burn anything, I said. You walked in here and tried to take what I built. That's not family. That's just taking. The officers guided them toward the exit. My sister-in-law went quietly, phone finally lowered, her son trailing behind her with the slow, bewildered expression of someone who had been expecting a much shorter morning. My brother went last, and at the door he turned once more, not to speak, just to look, the way people do when they're committing something to memory for a fight they're planning later. The bell above the door rang when it closed. The studio was very quiet for a moment. The cooler hummed. Somewhere in the back, a timer went off for the conditioning bath I'd started before any of this happened. Priya exhaled from the doorway. "I can go check the dahlias," she said. "Please," I said. Donna finished typing and looked up. "I'll have the response filing and the cease and desist ready by 3 o'clock. Do you want to come by my office? Or should I send it over?" "Send it," I said. "And send me your invoice." She smiled briefly. "The consult is on the house. The filing fees are not." "Fair," I said. After she left, I stood at my counter for a long moment. Not processing, not spiraling, just letting the room be quiet. One of my regulars, a woman named Carol, who came in every Thursday for a small seasonal arrangement for her kitchen table, was still sitting in the consultation chair near the window where she had been when everything started. She looked at me with an expression I recognized, the careful kindness of someone who has witnessed more than they expected to and doesn't want to make it worse by acknowledging it directly. "Your white ranunculus came in beautifully this week," she said. "They did," I agreed. She smiled. "I'll take a dozen." I wrapped them in craft paper and sage ribbon and tied it the way I always did, with a knot that held but could be opened without tearing the paper. Carol paid and paused at the door. "You handled that like someone who's been ready for it for a long time," she said. "I've been building for a long time," I said. "Same thing, I think." She nodded once and left. 3 days later, my attorney's response filing hit the county clerk's office with 46 pages of supporting documentation. My original lease, my SBA loan disbursement records showing the exact source of my startup funds, none of which originated with my brother, my personal bank records from the 18 months surrounding my opening, a sworn affidavit from my accountant, a formal legal objection to the disputed interest notice, citing no valid underlying transaction and requesting the filing be marked fraudulent and expunged from the record. The county clerk's office processed it in 2 business days. My brother's filing was rejected, noted in the record as unsupported and procedurally deficient. The notation stays in the system. His name stays attached to it. The cease and desist was delivered to his home address. He did not respond to it directly. His wife sent a single message to my personal number 3 days later. It said, "We didn't mean for it to go this far." I saved it, same as the first one. What I didn't know until the following week was that Donna, in the course of filing the response, had spoken with the county clerk's office about the process, and a clerk there had flagged something in conversation. A similar filing had been submitted 4 months earlier. Different business, different name, same structure, a self-drafted promissory note, a disputed ownership interest claim, a business owner who had no transaction record to support the alleged loan. That business owner had signed. She had been intimidated into signing an acknowledgement of debt she didn't owe, and she was now in the middle of a payment dispute that was draining her legal fund and her will. When Donna told me, I asked for the woman's name. Donna hesitated. "I can pass along a referral if she's open to it." "Do that," I said, "and give her my number, not as a lead, as someone who knows what the filing looks like." I don't know if she ever called, but I left the door open. The restraining order came through 2 weeks after the incident. It covered the business address, my residence, and a buffer zone around my delivery routes that my attorney had thought to include because she had seen what escalation looks like when someone has nothing left to lose but their pride. The order named my brother specifically and included a clause about business filing interference, which was the part that seemed to bother him most when his own attorney informed him of its terms. According to the message his attorney's office sent to Donna, he hated the wording, that it named what he had done precisely, without drama, without interpretation. Just the facts in clean legal language, filed and recorded, and permanent. My sister-in-law never posted the video. I don't know if she deleted it or just buried it. It doesn't matter. My cameras had the whole morning. Priya's quiet phone call had a timestamp. Donna's statement was part of the court record. There was nothing left to edit. Ren and Stem had its best month 2 weeks later. I don't know if word got around or if it was just good timing, the right season, the right clients, but the orders came in faster than I expected. And on a Thursday afternoon, when the cooler was full and the queue was longer than my staff and I could comfortably handle, I stood at my workbench with eucalyptus on my hands and the kind of exhaustion that feels like evidence of something good. Carol came in that Thursday too. She always came on Thursdays. She looked at the crowd in the studio and smiled. "Busy," she said. "Very," I said. "Good," she said simply, and waited her turn in line like everyone else. That evening, after close, I sat at the work table and wrote out the sequence of events from the morning my brother walked in to the day the restraining order was filed. Not for anyone else. Just to have it in my own words, in my own hand, in a notebook I kept in the same lockbox as my lease and my permits. I wrote it the way I try to build everything, without drama, without gaps, with the kind of care that means it will hold. Then I closed the notebook, turned off the lights, and locked the sage green door behind me. The silence on Clemson Street at night has a particular quality. No performance in it, just air and distance, and the sound of my own footsteps. I've earned that silence. It's mine. If you've ever had someone try to claim what you built, I want to hear from you. What would you have done differently? What would you have done the same? Leave it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story meant something to you, you know what to do, like subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.